So here we are again, just leaving work, and today is pretty much a normal commute, except for the fact that I've got a passenger. I've got my wife on the back, and I thought now would be a really good time to kind of go over the different considerations you should have when riding two up. And one of the big ones, there's actually two big ones, but one of the big ones is weight. And when I say weight, I don't mean that you got a overweight passenger. I just mean that the extra weight on the bike is something that a lot of people don't consider. But I'll tell you, when it comes time to braking and maneuvering, that weight is huge. My wife weighs about 110 pounds, 115 pounds, somewhere in there. And but when I'm under heavy braking, that 110 pounds becomes a lot more force against me and against the bike than just 110 pounds. So like I said, I'll put a link to a video I took of an accident where I actually impacted a car quite a while back. I think it was last year. And the fact that I didn't have a proper plan for dealing with the extra weight and the instability that comes along with that weight, the fact that I didn't have that plan ahead of time made a big difference in my getting into an accident or not. Because had I had a proper plan and taken into account the extra time and space I was going to need for maneuverability, then I wouldn't have had that accident at all. It would have been a close call and not a hit, not an impact. So what I found out as a result of that accident, I'll kind of walk you through that accident right now, but I was approaching an intersection. I already cleared behind me, cleared in front of me, except for there's a car in front of me, a car in front of that car, and then there was some oncoming traffic. The last of the oncoming traffic was a Ford Focus, and that guy, I was watching him, you know, I could kind of gauge his intentions. I thought there was a good possibility he was going to make a left in front of me, and so I had a plan to deal with that in case it happened, and it sure did. But the plan I had was a solo plan. That was this plan I would always have in that situation when I was by myself. And being by yourself is a lot different than being with a passenger. Like I said, I hadn't really thought about it to the extent that I should have, and so in any event, I did my normal. I executed my normal plan when he did, in fact, do what I thought he was probably going to do, which is make a left right in front of me. I braked hard to plant the front end, and next step was to maneuver to the left around him, get some distance. So first step, scrub speed, plant the front end. Second step, start a hard maneuver to the left and avoid him altogether. Well, my plan went to crap as soon as I made a hard braking to plant the front end. So my wife, who was my passenger then, came up on me from the back, pushed me forward just a little bit. I had a good brace, you know, I was firmly attached to the bars, so my muscles immediately reacted to that. I stiffened up a little bit to keep her from pushing me into the front of the bike. But since I was now a rigid hard stop, she started coming off the bike. She had nowhere to go, so she was coming off to the right. Immediately upon feeling her sliding across my back to the right after the hard impact against my back, I stopped my braking. As soon as I stopped my braking, the suspension unloads, and I'm now coasting. I moved to the left as far as I could, but I couldn't make the hard move to the left for two reasons. One, front end wasn't planted anymore. The suspension was completely unloaded. And two, most importantly, my wife was still coming off the back of the bike onto the right. So I had to just kind of move as far to the left as I possibly could without risking her coming off the bike altogether, and just hope for the best. the end result was the best I could have hoped for, which is I did actually impact the car. Excuse me. But the impact was a glancing impact and was far back on the rear quarter as I could get, really. End result was I ripped a bumper off of the car, tore up the front of the bike. Neither me or my wife actually hit the vehicle. The bike took all the force of the impact, and since I was coasting and since the bike was under no load as far as braking load, the bike just literally bounced off the car a little bit, and we didn't go down, stayed upright. I coasted to a stop, got off the bike, really pissed off. Luckily my wife was there to calm me down, and the guy was very apologetic. He did stop. Anyway, I'll post some pictures too in the description here underneath this video. But the bottom line is my plan failed because I hadn't planned properly. I planned only for me being alone. And it's a whole different plan that you have to think about when you have the extra weight of a passenger. That plan gets impacted more by how experienced is that passenger. You know, my wife is fairly experienced with riding with me. She's ridden with me quite a bit. But that was the first time we'd actually done anything like heavy braking. We'd never practiced that in a parking lot or somewhere safe. So during that heavy braking, she really was all new ground for her. She'd never been in that situation. That was a big mistake and a big oversight on my part not to practice that. And you know, that either A, not to practice it, and B, not to realize when I'm riding her that that's something we hadn't really practiced, and so I have to take that into account. And so now my plans have totally changed for how I would respond to that same situation with the passenger. I would give myself quite a bit more room. I would give myself enough room where I didn't have to do such heavy braking to execute a maneuver, and that's really it. You know, I would have a lot more distance and a lot more room between me and the car that I was approaching. And so the moral of this whole story is, if you're riding two up, you cannot rely on the same plan as if you're riding solo. Those plans have to change based on weight. Now, if you have a really overweight passenger, luckily my wife's like, say she's like 112 pounds at the most. Actually, she's probably gonna kick me because I think she's more like 108. But in any event, she's pretty light. But if you had, you know, another guy, or, you know, if that's your thing, or if you just have a taller or bigger female, then that weight can really, really mean a difference. Then it could actually impact you. But these are things that I just kind of wanted to pass along to you, and that riding two up, it brings a whole new set of challenges and definitely calls for a whole new set of plans than riding solo. So good luck with that. Hope that helps somebody. Hope it helps somebody to not have happen to them what happened to me. And happy trails.